doesn't matter. Anyway, we are all well aware that running that story was a mistake and are taking immediate steps.
I cannot actually get over this. It's really remarkable. A senior editor at Runway. You.
Yep.
Some sequels arrive like a normal movie announcement. The Devil Wears Prada 2 is not doing that. This one is walking back into the room like Miranda Priestly heard someone breathe too loudly, and everyone is sitting up straighter. The film is still heading to theaters in May, but Disney is already turning the build-up into an event. The studio announced that the world premiere of The Devil Wears Prada 2 will stream live on Disney Plus and Hulu on Monday, April 20th, 2026, giving fans a front row seat before the sequel arrives. The premiere will take place at Lincoln Center in New York City, the perfect stage for a franchise built on fashion, ambition, pressure, and quiet emotional destruction in a perfect coat. The livestream begins at 5:30 p.m. Eastern and 2:30 p.m. Pacific for subscribers who miss it live. The event is expected to be available afterward. That detail matters because this is not just a red carpet. For a movie like this, the red carpet becomes part of the story. The outfits, reactions, reunions, and little glances all become fuel for the conversation before it even opens. With this franchise, one look can become a headline faster than most trailers. Anne Hathaway, Meryl Streep, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci, Kenneth Branagh, Simone Ashley, Caleb Heron, and Helen J. Shen are all expected to appear. Director David Frankel and writer Aline Brosh McKenna, the creative names behind the original film, will also be part of the event. The original Devil Wears Prada arrived in 2006 and became much more than a successful comedy drama. Based on Lauren Weisberger's novel, the film made $326 million worldwide and became one of those pop culture movies that people keep quoting long after the credits are over. It gave us Andy Sachs, a young journalist trying to survive Runway magazine, and Miranda Priestly, the editor who could destroy a room with one calm sentence. Meryl Streep turned Miranda into an instant icon, earning a Golden Globe and an Oscar nomination. And Hathaway gave Andy the emotional center. Emily Blunt made Emily Charlton unforgettable, and Stanley Tucci gave Nigel the warmth that kept the story human. That is why this sequel has pressure on it. Fans do not just remember the plot. They remember the feeling. Now, almost 20 years later, the core cast is returning to a world that has completely changed. Fashion media, celebrity culture, social platforms, print magazines, and the attention economy are not what they were in 2006, so The Devil Wears Prada 2 cannot just bring back the old formula and hope nostalgia carries everything. It has to show what happens when old-school power enters a world that no longer waits for permission. The sequel reportedly follows Andy as she reunites with Miranda and Emily Charlton in an industry aching by technology. Runway, once presented like an untouchable fortress, now faces a landscape where print is weaker, advertising money is harder to protect, and influence can come from a phone screen instead of an editor's office. That is what makes this sequel more interesting than a simple reunion. Miranda Priestly was frightening because she controlled access. She decided what mattered, who mattered, and what the world would be told to desire. But in 2026, power moves faster. A viral post can shift a trend overnight. A creator can challenge an empire. A magazine can still matter, but it no longer stands alone at the top. At Disney's CinemaCon presentation in Las Vegas, the studio revealed new footage from the film, and from what was shown, Miranda has not softened much. One scene reportedly shows her leading an editorial meeting at Runway, casually destroying her team's ideas with that familiar controlled brutality. Simone Ashley's new character sits beside her, apparently trying to keep Miranda on a more politically correct track. The detail tells me the sequel knows where the tension is. Miranda's voice, taste, and cruelty are part of why people love watching her. But the culture around her has changed. Watching her navigate a more sensitive, more public, more instantly reactive world could be funny, uncomfortable, and maybe sharper than expected. The footage also included major fashion moments. along with scenes of Anne Hathaway and Emily Blunt's characters together on a boat in Italy. That sounds like the kind of image fans will pause, screenshot, zoom in on, and turn into a full investigation before breakfast. The internet does not simply watch movies anymore. It interrogates them under a very fashionable lamp. The cast is also much larger this time, with Justin Theroux, Lucy Liu, BJ Novak, Rachel Bloom, Pauline Chalamet, and Conrad Ricamore joining Runway. Lady Gaga is also connected through an original song called Runway, recorded with Doechii. Disney is not treating this like a small legacy sequel. This is being built like a pop culture comeback, with theatrical release, streaming access, music, fashion, social media, and fan nostalgia all moving at the same time. Early projections have suggested an opening weekend of at least $66 million, which says one thing clearly: people did not forget this world. During filming in New York last summer, fans gathered around the set. Photos and videos spread across social media, and every outfit seemed to become evidence in a larger mystery. The original film had time to become a classic. This sequel is being analyzed before anyone has even seen the full movie. Emily Blunt told Vogue that the intense interest in consuming the film before release says a lot about how the industry and our lives have changed. She said the cast began arriving in sweatpants and changing into costume at the last possible moment just to protect some of the magic. A movie about polish and illusion now has to protect its own illusion from phones, leaks, and instant judgment. Meryl Streep also described how surreal the attention became. She remembered shooting the first movie on 6th Avenue 20 years ago when almost nobody cared. This time, stepping out of her trailer brought a roar from the crowd, and fans even showed up dressed as Miranda, and that is the challenge. The original Devil Wears Prada became iconic over time. The sequel is arriving already carrying that weight. Fans want the wit, fashion, tension, emotional bite, and that feeling of being slightly terrified and completely entertained. That is hard to recreate. For me, the biggest question is Andy. In the first movie, she was the outsider trying to survive Miranda's world without losing herself. If she is now back at Runway as an editor, the dynamic changes completely. Is Andy still resisting the system, or has she learned how to use it? Has she grown beyond Miranda, or is she closer to becoming her than she wants to admit? And then there is Emily Charlton. Emily Blunt made the character unforgettable, turning every line into a tiny weapon. If this story places Emily against Miranda in a fight for advertising revenue, influence, and control, that could be the sharpest conflict in the movie. Emily was never just comic relief. She was ambitious, wounded, loyal, ruthless, and desperate to be seen. So yes, I am watching this one closely. The Devil Wears Prada 2 is not just bringing back a cast. It is bringing them into a media world that has changed so much that the original almost feels like it belongs to another era. That makes the sequel risky, but it also makes it much more exciting, because if it works, it will not only remind audiences why they loved the first movie, it could show us what happens when legacy power meets a culture that moves too fast to be controlled, with the world premiere streaming live before the theatrical release. Disney is making the message clear. This is not just a sequel. This is an event. The runway is open again, Miranda is back in the room, and everyone else better start walking faster. Stay close to screen radar. This fashion war is only getting started.